Good morning and welcome to Yoga Over 50, coming from Blue Point Yoga Center in Durham, North Carolina. My name is Lynn and it's good to see you here today. So let's begin lying down, big surprise. So make yourself comfortable on your back or any way that you like, or you could start out sitting if you really want to, but I'm going to lie down. Let your palms turn up toward the ceiling if you can, because that lets your shoulders relax away from the front of your body. Let every part of you sink into the floor. So whatever's touching the floor, you could have your feet flat and your knees bent, or you could have your legs outstretched, whatever feels comfortable to you. But regardless, whatever is touching the floor, let it really sink heavily into the floor. Let your eyes close or your gaze be soft. Makes it a little easier to turn your attention inward and let go of all the things that might be tugging on you from the world away from your yoga mat. And we'll just take the luxury of paying attention to what's immediately here in front of us for the next hour. So let your breath settle. It can be helpful to draw your attention to your breath. Just following the movements of your torso as you breathe in and breathe out. Maybe a little scan around the body at this point. You can start with one foot, just checking if you feel anything unusual, anything notable on the way that part of your body. So you could start with your left foot and travel up the left leg. If you notice something that feels tension, maybe letting the breath kind of imagine that it could flow in and out of that point of tension and help dissolve it away. Up the left side of the body, past the hip, past the torso, the left shoulder, and you could go down to the left hand and up the left arm. And along the left side of the neck and the left side of the face. Up to the spot where the third eye would be if you had one. Up between and a little above the eyes that you do have. And then down the right side of your body, down the right side of the face and neck, to the shoulder, and then to the right hand, traveling up the right arm. And down the right side of the torso, past the right hip, down the right leg. And check and see what's what with the right foot. And feel free to repeat that another time if you like. Or feel free to just be focused on your breath and feeling your back press into the floor as you breathe in and draw away slightly as you breathe out. Be sure to let your exhale be generous. So don't wind up short stopping it. If you let the exhale be generous, the inhale will just naturally follow if you relax your core muscles. And you might practice that for just a breath or two, which is to breathe out rather consciously and then just let the muscles of the core relax and notice that you don't really have to exert any effort to breathe in. It can just flow back in. My voice teacher is always reminding me to breathe in silently because that's an indication that there's no constriction of the in-breath, either from your torso muscles or from your neck and your throat. Okay, So now just let your breath return to its unobserved pattern. And today I'm just going to continue a bit of exploration of the various geometries of yoga poses. And today I'm going to concentrate a little bit on poses where the two sides of your body are the same mostly. I'm not going to stick strictly to that. But where you are moving your legs relative to the midline of the body. So we'll look at abduction. That's where you're moving your legs away from the center of your body out to the sides, and adduction, where you're bringing them back in and even crossing them across the midline of your body. And also looking at two other motions of the legs at the hips, external rotation where the toes are rolling outward, and internal rotation where the toes are rolling inward. And of course, I'm gesturing with my hands here because you can do those same motions through your shoulders with your arms as well. Okay, so for starters, let's just bring ourselves into a supine mountain position. So with the legs and the feet lined up with the hip joints and pressing out through the heels of the feet. So your feet are perpendicular to the floor. The soles of your feet are perpendicular to the floor with the toes pointing toward the ceiling. So a bit of activity in the legs through that flexion at the ankles. And let's, on an inhale, bring the arms up overhead, palms facing in. If they come to the floor behind you, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine too. Don't let it drag your back up off the floor. And exhale the arms back down to the sides. And inhale to lift them overhead again. And now leave them up there or somewhere near there, and we'll just take a really long stretch. So lead out through the heels, reach out through the fingertips again. Palms facing in makes a little space, more space through the shoulder joints here for that stretch. And then let that go, relax a moment. And then take a stretch on the left side of your body, leading out with the left heel, reaching up through the left fingers and letting your breath travel into the left side of the ribs as you breathe. And relaxing back again. And now on the right side, reaching out through the right heel and the right fingertips, breathing into the right side of the ribs. And relaxing back again. And then let's go across the body from the right heel to the left fingertips. That's a little different. And let that relax. And then the right fingertips and the left heel across the body. And relax that. And now cross your right ankle over your left and grasp your right wrist with your left hand. If you could keep everything on the floor, that's nice. If you need to lift your hands off the floor, that's okay. And slide your feet and your hands over to the left side of your body. You can use your left hand to just give a little drawing on the right arm and making a sort of banana shape on the floor here. Breathe into the right side of the body, taking a bit of a stretch on the right side. Now we have the right leg crossed across the midline a little bit. We'll bring the feet and the hands back to the center and recross. So now your left ankle is going across your right ankle and grasping the left wrist with the right hand, moving the hands and the feet off to the right side of your body, taking a stretch on the left side, letting your breath expand, the ribs travel past the hip, under the armpit on that left side. And we've got a little midline crossing going on here with the legs, and then back to the center. And you can release the grasp on the wrist and uncross the legs and let your arms back down to the sides. And now let's stretch the arms out. And you can either have your legs outstretched or you can have your knees bent and feet flat for the moment here. Let's stretch the arms out with the palms facing up, out at shoulder level. And then bring your left arm, kind of sweep it in a big arc so that it comes across your body, and your upper arm is just kind of lying across your chest. You could just let the lower part of that left arm droop down, however, just in a relaxed way. And then use your right hand to take a light grasp kind of toward the shoulder blade of your left shoulder. So you're kind of wrapping the arm around, and just very gently give a little stretch along the back of your left shoulder there. Nothing too hard. Yep, so we've got the left arm crossing the midline of the body down. Actually, both arms are. Stretch the arms back out to the side again, and then we'll sweep the right hand up across the body, letting the upper part of the right arm just drape across the chest. The lower arm can just sort of drape down under the left. And then use your left hand to grasp around behind yourself onto the right shoulder blade and just give a little gentle traction there, taking a stretch around the back of the right shoulder. And unwrap the arms, stretch them out to the side again. And now we're just going to have a little experiment with the movements of the legs, and we'll bring the legs up where you can see them in case you want to sort of visually check out what's happening as well as feel it. So we're going to bring the legs up over the hips. So bend one knee at a time, bring your feet flat first. We'll just take a few rocks of the pelvis here just to get the back a little bit awakened. So on an inhale, tuck the tailbone toward the floor. Well, not tuck it, press it toward the floor so that the small of your back rises up from the floor. And then on an exhale, tuck the tailbone under, raising it away from the floor so that the small of your back flattens down from the floor. If you put your hand on your lower belly, you can feel the activity of your abdominal muscles as you draw the small of your back down to the floor on the exhale. Using the exhale for that helps to activate those abdominal muscles. So we're just making a rocking motion of the pelvis here. And then let it settle down into a neutral position. And now if you'd like to have a little something under your hips in order to bring the legs up over the hips, go ahead and get that. I think I'll just stack my palms with the palms facing down under the hips, just elevates them a little bit, makes it a little easier for the legs to come up over the hips and stay there without having a gigantic amount of abdominal activity go on. So stretch out through the heels. So your legs are fairly straight, but they don't have to be entirely straight. And they could be up over the hips. They could be a little bit toward the floor from there. But again, don't want a huge amount of abdominal effort here. So just make like you're standing in on your feet on the floor. So we're sort of mimicking the L-shaped position that we sometimes use as part of the half sun salutation. Now, see if you can have your feet flat toward the ceiling, so neither the inner edge nor the outer edge being closer to the ceiling here. So we've got the legs in a neutral position, and we could let them come away from the body. And I guess I'm going to take my hands out now, because one thing it can be nice to do, you can either put a strap over your feet so that you're kind of sliding your legs apart against the strap. That gives them a little support, or you can just let your palms be on the outside of the thighs. It just gives the legs a little reassurance so that they don't feel like something excessive is going to happen to them in this position. They don't worry that they're going to flop out to the side and not come back or something. So we're just doing a bit of abduction here, moving the legs away from the center line of the body, but we still have the legs in a neutral position with respect to rotation at the hips, as the toes are still pointing straight back toward the shins here, and the knees are pointing straight back behind your body. And then gather the legs together, use the core muscles and maybe a little help from the hands to bring the legs back up to the center. And now leaving the toes pointing right back over your head, we're going to cross the legs across the midline. So just bring your right leg across your left leg. Yeah, so now your right foot's on the left side of your left foot. Keep stretching out through the heels there. And then bring it back over to its normal position. And then we'll bring the left foot across the right, giving it a little stretch across the midline of the body. And then bring it back to the center. And then just let your knees bend and fold your legs back down toward your chest. Take a little break here from that by drawing the knees in toward the chest. You can let the knees come apart to the outside of your torso. Take a little side-to-side roll here. And then stick the legs back up overhead, stretching out through the heels. And now we're just, I'm going to prop up again a little bit. And we're just going to turn the toes in and out a little. So let the toes roll out to the outside. That's the external rotation at the hips. And turn the toes in toward each other. That's the internal rotation at the hips. We're still keeping the feet kind of flat up toward the ceiling here. Just move back and forth between those two positions a little bit. And then bring the feet back, legs back to a neutral position. And now turn the toes out a little bit and put the hands on the sides of the thighs and let your legs abduct, that's come apart from each other, with the toes pointing out a little bit. And maybe you notice that feels a little bit different from when you had the toes uh, pointing straight back behind you. So now we're both abducting and externally rotating, which lots of yoga poses do that. And then we're going to gather the legs back together, use the core, maybe a little assist from the hands to do that. And then we could turn the toes in a little bit and cross the right foot over the left with the toe pointing out toward the left, the toes of the right foot pointing out toward the left. Maybe that feels a little different than it did before. Bring it back and now point, cross the left foot in front of the right foot. So yeah, so your left toes are pointing out toward the right as you do that, and bring them back together and straighten them all back out again. Maybe take a few pointing and flexings of the foot and let the legs fold back down toward your torso again. And then let the feet come to the floor. So one yoga pose that uses the crossing of the leg across the midline, there's bunches of them, of course, but one of them is eagle pose. And we could do a version of that lying down. So let's do that before we move away from lying on the floor. So with your knees bent and your feet flat, cross your right leg over your left. You can hug the thighs and the calves together. If you like, you can wrap your right toes around behind your left calf, kind of get it all laced up together there. It's a little easier to do lying down than it is when you're standing up. And let's just take some eagle arms too. So stretch your arms out to the sides with in a T with the palms facing up. And then we're going to cross the arms across the body with the right arm coming under the left arm. And you could just leave them crossed at the upper arm, or you could bend at the elbows and then bring the backs of your palms together, or you could wrap a little further so that the front of your palms come together. Okay, so now we'll just stretch the shoulders up away from the body a little bit. And if you like, you had an exhale, you could bring your elbows and your knees closer together. And then on the inhale, let the feet back down to the floor with control. And exhale, bring them close to each other. We don't want to make a big herking upward here. So leave your back supported, your entire back supported on the floor from the tailbone to the top of the head. So if the elbows and the knees don't come together all the way, don't worry about that part. And we'll let the feet back down to the floor and unwrap the arms and stretch them out with the palms up. And then unwrap the legs, put the feet back to the floor with the knees bent, and take a little swish of the knees side to side using an exhale to bring the knees back up through the center. And then let's do that eagle pose, that supine eagle pose on the other side. So starting with knees bent and feet flat, wrap the left leg over the right, and you can either just squeeze the outside of the calf and the inside of the thighs together, or you can wrap your left foot around behind the right calf. I'm so mixed up by now with my legs all twisted up, which is the left and the right, but I think that's it. So that you have your left toes kind of hooked around behind the right calf. And then we'll wrap the arms as well. So starting with them stretched out in a T, cross the arms across the body with the left arm coming under the right arm, and then wrap as far as you want to wrap. So it could be just leaving the upper arms kind of sticking out in a V shape on the, with the right hand going off to the left and the left hand going off to the right. Or you could put the backs of the palms together, or you could wrap the fronts of the palms together. Again, leave your whole back down on the floor here from the tailbone to the top of the head. And we'll lift the legs off the floor, perhaps, maybe not. And the elbows and the knees toward each other, and stretch the elbows and the knees away as the feet come back to the floor. And again, bring them toward each other, and then back to the floor. Keep squeezing the arms together and squeezing the legs together here. And then we'll let the feet back to the floor and unwrap the arms, stretch them out, unwrap the legs, plant the feet, knees bent. You can move your feet a little bit apart on the mat, maybe as wide as the edge of the mat, and take a few more loose swishes from side to side. An equal number to each side, and then bring the feet back toward each other and let yourself roll over onto one side. And let's come to a seated position here. Let's come to hands and knees first. So take whatever props you like to be comfortable here. We'll set up with the knees under the hip joints and the wrists under the shoulders, pressing firmly into the floor, giving a little traction of the hands toward each other, emphasizing the pressure into the pads at the base of the fingers and the inside of the hand. The thumb and the forefinger side takes a little of the stress off the wrist, but please also feel free to use forearms or to put your hands on blocks or some other posture if that works better for you. So just a little stretch for the legs and the feet here. So on an inhale, bring the left foot straight back behind you, the ball of the foot and the toes on the floor, the heel straight up toward the ceiling. Give a little pressure with the hands to take a bit of a stretch out of the back of the leg, especially the lower leg and the bottom of the foot. Okay, everything's still, aligned, facing forward, neither abducted nor adducted. And then we'll set that foot back down and take the right leg back in the same way. Everything's still all lined up as it would be if you were in the standing mountain position, and we'll let that right knee back down. And now let's take that left foot back again, and we'll give it a stretch, a long line from the heel up through the hips, up through the shoulders, out through the top of the head, long in the back of the neck. And on an exhale, now let that leg travel across your body toward the right. So we're adducting it now. And keep leading out with the heel. So we still have the heel pointing up toward the ceiling. But now we've got the leg crossing the midline of the body. And then swing it back around and move it out farther away and press. So now you've got it out to the side a bit, so it's a little bit abducted, so moved away from the midline of the body. Keep pressing through the heel there, and then bring it straight back behind. Take a bit of a spinal balance here, raising the foot from the floor, leading out with the heel, raising the right arm, and then exhale that right hand and left knee down underneath you again. And then take the right foot back behind you, press it back in the neutral position. And then on an exhale, move that one across the midline of your body toward your left. Keep pressing into the ball of the foot and the toes on the floor and leading out with the heel here for a long stretch on the right side of your body. And then swing it back around to the center and then out to the right. So now you have that right leg abducted away from the midline of your body. Keep pressing into the ball of the foot and the toes on the floor, leading out with the heel. And bring that foot back to the center. I'm tripping over my mat. And then bring that foot off the floor, and we'll take a little spinal balance here. The right foot raised, leading out with the heel, and the left hands reached up, palm facing in alongside your head. And we'll set that pair back down and take a little break into child's pose, letting the hips come back over the heels here. And you can let your head rest down, and you can make a little prop for your head by stacking up your fists. And just let your back round and relax for a moment. And then come back to hands and knees and take a seated position. So if you like a little something to sit on, to sit more comfortably with a tall spine, have that here. mostly, well, we're going to have several things. So we'll have some things with the legs out to the side and some things, sort of center myself up here, some things with the legs out straight. So let's just take a kind of a regular plain vanilla seated mountain position for a moment. So you'll notice that you've got already quite a lot of things going on with the legs. So we've moved the thighs away from each other. So they are abducted away from the midline of the body. We also have the thighs externally rotated. Well, the whole legs really are externally rotated. So the inside of your legs is facing up and the outside of your legs is facing down toward the floor. And in addition to that, we have flexion at the hip joint and flexion at the knee joint, probably a little flexion at the ankle joint too. So lots of stuff here. Let's just take a pause. Feel your breath go in and out. Feel the weight going down into the sits bones, the sides of your legs and your feet. Shrug your shoulders up to your ears. Let them fall down in a relaxed way. Shrug them up again. Let them fall down. Be sure that your hands are situated so that your elbows also can be close to your body and relaxed. If you turn your palms up, you might feel a little stretching across the shoulders. Nice to keep that space across the front of the shoulders. Think of a little stretch along the back of the neck. Take a couple of breaths here. And now let's just recross the legs so that the other leg is in front in a seated mountain position. Just kind of notice how maybe different, maybe feel different. Everybody's got one preferred side. So maybe when you take the less preferred side, you'll feel a few things. Just take note, part of the observation without criticism. And notice that when we're sitting cross-legged like this, we actually, although the torso is facing forward and the hips are facing forward, we're in a little bit of an asymmetrical position because one foot is in front of and or on top of the other one. So now we'll come to a position that's got a lot of similarities to that, but it's a more symmetrical one. If you bring the soles of your feet together into a bound angle position, now both legs are doing the same thing. They're both, neither is in front or behind the other one. So they're kind of a mirror image of each other if you were to take a line down the midline of your body. If you feel like you're kind of hunched here, let me turn to the side. If you feel like you've gotten a little bit kind of rounded over here, you want to be able to sit up straight with a mountain spine. So you can experiment with moving your feet farther away from your body or closer into your body. It also might be helpful to take your hands and just reach your hands behind you and tent your fingers and just use that to create a little bit of pressure. Draw your shoulders back a little behind your body for a tall spine. And the little bit of pressure rolls the pelvis forward so that you can have the little inward curve at the waist part of the spine. So even if it's hard to hold that position, just give your body a little sensation of that being possible here. Okay, great. And now let's bring the knees back up to the center and then scoot the feet away to sit in staff pose. So maybe I'll turn to the front again because it's easier to see what I'm doing that way. So the feet are out in front. So basically we've got the same position as with the legs up over the hips, except we've now rotated it by 90 degrees. So it's as if your feet were standing on the floor perpendicular to the actual floor. So the toes are pointing straight up toward the ceiling. And lead out with the heels to feel some activity in the legs here. It's not necessary that the knees come all the way straight, so a little bend in them could be fine, and that might help you sit up with that little inward curve at the waist part of the spine. So we'll just experiment a little bit with the feet here. So right now we have the legs in a neutral position with respect to both ab and adduction and with respect to external and internal rotation. So let's let the feet roll out. Keep leading out with the heels here. Just notice how that feels now that you've externally rotated a little bit. And then we could internally rotate. You might have to either move your feet a little apart or let your toes pass each other. Yeah, keep leading out with the heels. Notice where you get a stretch on the outside of the legs, and then return your legs back to a neutral position. And then with the toes still pointing straight up toward the ceiling, we're just going to abduct the legs. So slide the feet away from each other. It doesn't have to be a whole lot. So we're just taking a V shape here on the floor. Try to situate myself in a symmetrical way. Again, with the pelvis rolled a little forward between the legs so that you can have a tall spine. So the toes are pointing straight up toward the ceiling. Lead out through the heels here, and just notice where you feel this, maybe around your hips, maybe around the inside of the thighs. You can tent your fingers behind you, draw the shoulders behind you, give a little pressure on the fingers to roll the pelvis forward between the legs. Maybe feel a little different stretch, perhaps a little different stretch in the inside of the thighs. And then let that go. And now let your feet roll out. Keep leading out with the heels, and maybe give that little forward pressure again. And notice how different that could feel just from rolling the toes away from each other. And we could roll the toes in and do the same thing, and yet a different sensation for me, especially around the outside of my hips. And then we'll let that go and bring the legs back together in the staff pose. And now we're going to take a posture that could involve crossing your leg across the midline of the body, but maybe you won't choose to do that. So we'll just see here. So we'll bend the right knee to bring the knee in toward the chest. So I can turn to the side here. I think I'll stay facing forward. So we'll just bring the right foot in, the knee is bent. Again, using your core muscles to sit yourself up straight against the belly coming close to this right thigh. And we've still got the legs all in a neutral position here. All we've done is fold one knee. Now, we're going to do a little twist here, but one thing that we could do, but it's not absolutely necessary, is to take that right foot and cross it to the opposite, to the left side of the left knee or thigh. Now, only do that if you can kind of wind up that way without hitching yourself off to the side. So you want to still keep equal weight into each sits bone and equal length on each side of the spine. And use your core muscles to keep your body gathered up against your thigh, and then use your core muscles and inhale yourself very tall in the center and exhale to turn toward your right. Don't use the arms to take yourself around, just let them come along for the ride, not pushing or pulling on anything. The right shoulder could draw a little behind you. You could turn your head to look back toward that right shoulder. The head swivels pretty easily and safely, but we don't want to put any extra strain other than what the core muscles are doing to rotate the spine around. And keep breathing here and keep sitting yourself up close to that raised right thigh. And then on an inhale, we'll turn back to the center and unwrap that leg and come back out to the staff pose, and maybe just take a little bob of the knees to relax here. And then bend the left knee to bring the left knee in toward the chest and sit yourself up closely against the left thigh. Still in a neutral position for the moment. And you could do your twist right from here. That would be fine. If you can cross your left foot over your right leg without getting all cockeyed and still have your weight equally into each sits bone and length on the two sides of the body, then fine to do that, but not necessary at all. If you're doing this, press into your left foot and use your core muscles to keep your belly and your left thigh close together. And we'll inhale to be long in the center and exhale to turn to the left. Just let the arms passively fall. Draw back with the left shoulder. You could turn your head to look back toward that left shoulder. Keep gathering your left knee across your midline of your body and pressing the left foot into the floor. And keep breathing, by the way. And on an inhale, turn back to the center, unwind the leg if you've crossed it, extend it back out again, and take a little flop up and down. Okay, so now we're going to come to a standing position. So do that in any way that works safely and comfortably for you. If you want to try standing up from the floor, you cross your legs, you press into the feet, and rise up. Sometimes we practice that in this class, but we won't stop to elaborate on that today, so save that for another time. Okay. So let's stand in a standing mountain position a bit. So finding the joints of the hips and lining up the legs and the feet under those joints, moderated for your own body, of course. So a neutral position, nice, steady, stable position. We can use this as kind of a rest and a reset position in between the many asymmetrical poses of yoga. Turn the palms forward a moment and let your shoulders broaden, and then let the arms and the hands relax at your sides. Think of a little outward traction at the heels, just a little bit to create relaxation across the back of the hips. Think of a little stretch to the back of the neck. Okay. All right. So let's inhale the arms up overhead, stretch long on both sides, from the feet up through the fingertips, straight up. So not kicking back into a back bend, but just straight up. And now this will be a little bit of a balance challenge as well as a stretch. Cross your right foot over your left and grasp your right wrist with your left hand, and see if you can keep your arms back in line with your torso. And again, with a neutral spine, not arching back into a back bend. Press into your right foot. Use your left hand to draw your right hand across your body. So we've got a little crossing of the midline with the right leg there. And we're taking a big stretch, letting the breath travel into the right side of the body. And then inhale back upright. Let the arms go, uncross the feet, come back to the standing mountain position for just a moment. And then inhale and sweep the arms back overhead again. And now cross the left foot over the right. So we've adducted that leg, and we'll grasp the left wrist with the right hand again, leaving the arms back in line with the torso and leaving the head and neck in line with the torso too. Press into the left foot. Give a little traction with your right hand on the left wrist and use that to open the left side of the body and let the breath travel into the left open side of the body here. And relax back to the center. Let the arms come back down and uncross the legs. Step the legs apart and just take a little loose swish for a moment. And then step the feet back together in the standing mountain position. And we are going to do some things with the legs out wide. So, and we'll do a little bit of forward folding from there. So it could be that you might want books or blocks or something else like that to put your hands on, or maybe you'd like to have a chair handy so you could put your hands on the seat of a chair. That's another possibility. I'll just bring my chair out here so as to be able to demonstrate that. So I'm going to turn sideways this way, but I'm not going to turn my mat, but you can just step out wide on your mat, comfortably wide stance, and with the toes pointed straight forward at the moment. So now the legs are abducted away from the midline of the body, but we haven't rotated them. They are still neutral, more or less neutral in their hips. So I'll just take that wide-legged stance in a side-facing position here. So we've got the same standing mountain as we had before, except now the feet are apart from each other, the legs are abducted away from the midline. So we'll stand tall here. You can turn the palms forward and broaden across the chest. And then bring the hands to the place where your legs meet your torso, and we'll hinge forward. So we're going to take a forward fold here, but keeping the spine stretching long. So we're keeping the spine in its mountain pose. Just go over until your hips stop hinging toward, with the bringing the belly toward the thigh. So when your spine starts to round at the small of the back, you stop too. If your hands come to the floor, that's fine. If they don't come to the floor, that's fine too. If they can come to blocks, that'll work. If you have a chair handy, you can be leaned over and just place your palms on a chair for a place to support them. Now I think I'm going to turn to the front because you'll be able to see what I'm doing better. So with your hand resting on something, we're going to bring the right hand into the middle of the space between the 2 feet and bring the left hand to the left hip. Keep stretching the spine long here. Keep pressing into both the inside and the outside edge of your feet and rotate toward your left so that your left shoulder is stacking above your right. Keep stretching your spine very long. So we only want to do one thing at a time. So we have a neutral spine with respect to flexing or extending, but we're rotating it now. And then turn back to the center on an inhale and switch hands so that now your left hand is under your face, and bring your right hand up to the right hip. And we're going to rotate toward the right, stacking the right shoulder above the left. Keep stretching the spine long, keep pressing into both the inside and the outside of the feet. And turn back to the center. And now, switch around again. Just going to do a little straddle-legged down dog. And again, you could have your palms on a table or on a chair if you don't want to have your hands on the floor. We're just going to reach the hands out ahead, bringing a line between the wrists and up to the shoulders and up to the hips, pressing out through the feet. We've still got the toes pointing straight forward, so we haven't internally or externally rotated the feet. We just have this leg abducted down doggish position here. And then you can leave a little bend to the knees to walk the hands back underneath you. And press into your feet. Kind of draw the thighs toward each other so you can bring the hands to the hips and raise the spine all as one unit. Come back up again and walk your feet back in toward each other for a moment, back to standing mountain position. So now I'm going to stay facing this way. I don't think I need this anymore. So we're going to step into a wide position. So we're abducting the legs from the thighs again. But this time we're also going to externally rotate them, turning the toes out a bit. Well, how much is a bit? I don't know. It depends on how much your hips easily like to go out to the side versus objecting to that, because we're going to bend at the knees and we want the knees to go in the same direction as the toes. So if your hips like going out like this, you could turn your feet out quite a bit. And if they don't like going out like that, then don't turn your feet out so much. So we'll have a little goddess pose. So let's reach the arms out wide to begin, palms facing forward. Very bold look here, okay? Pressing through the inside and the outside of the feet, reaching out through the fingertips. And on an exhale, we're going to go straight down, bending at the ankles, the knees, and the hips, and bending at the elbows. Keep breathing. Make sure your knees are going the same direction as the toes, and adjust the amount of external rotation you have with your feet if you need to. Just pressing here, keeping our balance. And then we'll press into the feet, kind of gather the thighs toward each other, straighten back up, stretch the arms out wide again. And exhale and come back down into the goddess pose. And now we could press into the toes and ball of the left foot and bring the left heel up off the floor. Keep the elbows back in line with your torso here. Let that heel down and do the same on the right, pressing into the ball of the right foot, raising the right heel. And exhale down. And then maybe both heels could come up at the same time. I think this might be our balance pose today. Keep breathing. And then we'll let the heels down. And we'll press through the feet, gather the thighs toward each other. Take a big X-shaped stretch again, and then let the arms down. And walk the feet back in toward each other and come back to the standing mountain position. Oh, I think we could do one more. It's kind of like a balance. And, well, it is a balance. Okay, so let's stand in a standing mountain position. Shift the weight into the left foot. Gather your left hip under you. So everything is staying neutral on that side of the body. And we'll bring the unweighted right foot out to the side, toes facing forward. So that leg has now been abducted, moved away from the midline, but not rotated in any way. Okay. We'll stretch up with the left arm, so that's the standing leg side, and let the right arm rest on the thigh of the extended right leg. And now shifting your weight into your left leg, but shifting your body away from the midline as little as you can, see if it might be possible to raise that right foot off the floor. If you give a little flexion at the ankle, that makes the leg more active, and it's easier to lift something that's kind of being responsible for itself than a floppy toddler in a tantrum. So we're stretching from the raised foot across the body to the raised hand, from the planted foot to the raised hand, from the right-handed fingers pointing toward the floor, up across the body to the left fingers. Keep breathing, keep your head on straight. And when you're ready, put that foot back down, lower the arm, come back to a standing mountain position, maybe take it just a little loose. Bobble up and down. And come back to the standing mountain as a starting point. Shift your weight into your right foot, gathering your right hip underneath you, maybe the weight going a little toward the heel of that right foot. Stand the left toe out to the side, the toe points forward, the knee points forward, so no rotation at that hip joint, just abducting the leg out to the side. We'll reach the right arm up overhead. And let the left arm rest on the extended left thigh. And with as little sort of swaying and shifting as you can, consistent with standing on one leg, you can try taking that left foot up off the floor, maybe with a flex to the ankle. Don't lock the knee on the leg that you're standing on. So make sure it could bend. You can try bending it a little bit, just make sure it's still got some flexibility to it. Keep stretching tall on your standing leg side of the body, from the supporting foot up through the fingers, from the raised foot across the body to the raised fingers, from hand to hand. Keep breathing. And when you're ready, lower the leg back down and the arm down, and take a very loose bobble up and down. Okie doke. So let's come back to the floor. You can come back any way that is safe and comfortable for you, but in keeping with the abduction and external rotation, I'm just going to move my legs a little apart and toes out a little bit to give me room to bring the hands to the heart, bend at the knees, the hips, and the ankles, and squat down to the floor. If squatting's not your thing, not for your knees, don't do it. If it's a little bit for your knees, you can leave some weight into the wall while you get down to the floor. Okay, all right. So let's do just one more thing before Shavasana. So come to a prone position. Let your chin or your forehead rest so your head will be aligned with your body. Let your legs stretch out behind the hip joint so everything is still in a neutral position with regard to the legs right now. And we're going to do a little bit of cobraing, well, actually a little bit of locust pose with the legs in various positions. So first, and you can do whatever you want with your arms. You can have your arms like this, or you can reach them back along your body in the sort of more classic locust pose. So first, we'll gather the belly muscles with an exhale, and on an inhale, stretch through the feet, stretch through the head. So you're now resting on the front of your torso in locust pose, with the legs stretching out behind you at hip joints width apart, toes pointing down toward the floor, and exhale back down. Now, move your legs a little apart from each other, so you have a little bit of a V of the legs, and we'll do that again. Still the toes and the knees are pointing down. Inhale to stretch through the feet, stretch through the head to locust. Exhale back down. And now, with your legs a little apart, let your toes roll out to the side. So your toes are now pointing a bit away from each other. Gather the belly on the exhale, inhale out. A little bit different here, feels a little different through the back. Exhale down. And then bring your legs back to being aligned under your hip joints and let your toes turn in toward each other. Sometimes this is a quite comfortable feeling. And we'll go up again here. So gather the belly on an exhale, inhale through the head and the feet, into locust again. A little different sensation around the hips with the toes pointing in toward each other. And exhale back down and let your hands make a pillow for your head. Bend at the knees and take a little swish from side to side. Okay. All right. I think we will time for Shavasana. So you're on your belly. If you'd like to do Shavasana on your belly, you could certainly do that. You can rest your forehead on your hands, or you could turn your head to one side. If you turn it to one side, after a couple of minutes, we'll be in Shavasana for maybe about 4 minutes here. You turn it to the other side. Give a little experience on that side. If you're being on your belly is not comfortable, take any Shavasana position you like. Could be on your back, could be knees bent, feet flat, could be legs up on a chair. In fact, I was going to do it on my belly, but legs on the chair sounds so good that I think that's what I'll do instead. Legs up the wall, whatever you like. So the idea here is create a comfortable place for your body to let go all of its concerns. So if you're lying on your back, nice to let the palms turn up toward the ceiling and the shoulders relax toward the floor. Arrange your props so that you can really rest into the props. So have another little scan around your body to see if any part of you is hesitating to just melt into whatever is supporting you. If so, maybe if you send your breath in and out there a few times, it'll help that relaxation process. Once again, close your eyes or let your gaze be soft. Let your breath settle. Be generous about the exhales. Let the core muscles relax after the exhale so that the inhale can just flow back in. Now let your breathing become a little deeper. Give a little more emphasis to the inhalation. Still silent, however. So if you feel a big kind of sighing noise or something, we're not doing ujjayi breathing right now. So if your throat is fully relaxed, you'll be able to take a big inhale without making a sound. Bring a little motion to the hands and the feet, maybe by wiggling the fingers and toes. You're rolling the hands around the wrists, the feet around the ankles. If you're on your belly, bend your knees so your feet come up toward the ceiling and just take a few sways of the knees from side, or the feet from side to side rather. If you're lying on your back, create a place for your knees to be bent so that you can let the knees wave from side to side. You could draw the knees in toward your chest with your hands, or you could have your feet flat, either propped on the chair if you've been using a chair, propped on the wall if you've been using a wall, or on the floor. Just roll the knees side to side, let that make a little massage for the back. Let yourself roll to one side. So if you've got props that are in the way, just use your feet to move them out of your way. You can roll onto one side and rest there. Make your head comfortable either on the floor or on your arm. Leave your eyes closed or your gaze soft. When you're ready to come up, press with your hands on an exhale so that your head and your neck and your core muscles have very little work to do. And come to a seated or a kneeling position where you'll have a tall spine, relaxed belly muscles, plenty of room to breathe freely. Feel the weight into your sits bones, into the legs and the feet, whatever's touching the floor. You could be seated in a chair if you like. Let the weight of your torso line up with the shoulders over the hips, rib cage over the pelvic girdle, the head in the middle of the shoulders, elbows close to the sides. We'll bring the palms together, the thumbs near the breastbone, and close with an Om after an inhale. Namaste. Thank you for practicing together today. I feel like I have a